Good morning. This is a player recap and reflections on last night's Symbaroum session 9. It's really more like session 13 or so because we've had a couple of two-part sessions, but session 9, Symbaroum by Free League. This is the original mechanics, not the 5th edition setting books, right? Okay. David's turn, GMC, fantastic. Dell playing a new character, Todd, of course, as Cabello, and then of course I return as Taro. So this was fun. Because I GM'd the last session, Dell in his session kind of sets a new world order by removing Rigel, and then of course I follow up by saying, well, what are the ramifications of Rigel being pulled from the world or vanishing from the world? This fallout for the party. I then described, because I was GMing, Taro wouldn't be in session, so I described that Taro spent a month and a half, almost 60 days, self-loathing, self-pity, self-indulgent, drinking, hallucinogenic, mushrooms, whoring, and then I ran that session, and then we're back to it. It's his turn, and I have to kind of, in a way, explain, Taro's back and what condition he's in. So I described Taro as, of course, having lost some muscle mass, looks very gaunt, unkept, doesn't seem to care about his appearance, and described Taro basically as clearly a man who is maybe in, I don't know what the steps are for recovering from depression, but in a way he is still not fully recovered, right? So maybe this is the mission, or this will start to give him confidence there is a future, right? Okay, so David puts us in our townhouse that is provided to us by the Chamberlain, with Thoraya there and Cabela there and Taro there, happens to be back, as he comes and goes. David has so one of the character traits of Dell's new changeling wizard, or rune, what do you call them? Staff mage. Is he has a bane and a boon. He has a 17-year-old minion, basically, that is kind of a bane slash boon, and David uses him brilliantly as an NPC character comes bursting into the town home and says, "There's a man named Argello who says Malleus is in trouble. You need to come to the dump," and the dump is a tavern. In the Thistlehold, kind of a slummy area, Thistlehold. And of course, we all know it, of course, and Taro remarks, "Yes, I've spent many a homeless night drinking myself silly in the dump and then sleeping by the dump, so to speak." And he says that there's a giant barbarian named Herg that says he owes him money and he's looking for him, and this could get ugly. So we jump up to go, and I described Taro getting dressed up, and his armor doesn't quite fit now as he's lost some lean mass, he's lost weight, and I say, his armor fits a little big, his sword buckles, etc., kind of hang low on his hips. Pretty pathetic looking, ex-warrior or warrior slash ranger. Thoraya leads the way with his boy off down the street while I'm trying to get garbed up and dressed, and while Todd describes his character just the opposites, gained weight during this 60 days, unemployed, and he's having trouble buckling his tunic or whatever, his belt he's jerking around the fact that he's gained weight, so it's pretty fun. And what's good about this session is it lets us get our characters back on our feet. It lets us kind of bring together those loose ends of what happens when our characters aren't in session, during this fallout. So it's great, kind of all just getting reestablished as a party and as characters. So it was great. It was great. We all head off down as night falls. Lamplighters are out. The crowd, the streets are crowded, but less crowded than during the hubbub of the day. We get to the dump, and Argello meets us outside, and he tells us he wants 100. I think it was 100 shillings. Before he tells us where Malleus is at and what's going on, and of course, Taro, we're all broke, and but Taro, having just met Thoraya, turns to Thoraya and says, "Pay the man," and that's 10 thalers roughly, somewhere around there. And Dell doesn't have 10 thalers, so he offers him a thaler, and he casts cold upon it. So when he drops it into Argello's hand, like he's going to drop 10 thalers, it's so cold it causes damage, and he pulls his hand away. The coin falls into the mud. He reaches down to pick it up, and Taro steps on it and basically says, "Where is Malleus? You're not taking this coin until we find out where Malleus is." I basically tell him it's not worth 100 shillings to know where Malleus is at, and he begrudgingly tells us he's in the dump, which is the tavern name. He's in the dump, and he storms in without his coin as I'm standing on it, and I immediately go in looking for Malleus, and Cabello follows in behind me. Thoraya and his minion Bonner, the 17-year-old acolyte apprentice, follows, picking up the thaler, and he had a little bit to drink when he sat down to tell us what was going on. So Bonner at 17 is beginning to enjoy some of the secular ways of the big city, right? As you can imagine, he is the apprentice to a monk who travels around and is pretty sober and pretty, denies himself many of the wonders and the grandeurs of secular living. And so the boy is finding out about he's finding out about some of the good things in life, right? The boy Bonner. So busting into the tavern, I immediately search for Malleus. I see Malleus across the tavern, and he is surrounded by tankards that are empty and on the floor, and he's clearly passed out, probably drunk. I tell Cabello, secure Malleus while I find the large barbarian that the rumors are Malleus owes him money, and there's threats of what he may do, and I see he's in the bar with his minions, so I head across the crowded tavern to confront the barbarian and to negotiate. Not interested in denying him his right, and not interested in, but ultimately to confront him and say, "We're taking Malleus home, and we'll oblige you with some other obligation, or we'll pay you in installments." Something I'm thinking that's what I'm going to have to say to this guy. But I want first Cabello to make sure he's over there and make sure Malleus is not, in a bad way already. Meanwhile, Argello cuts off, and meanwhile Thoria is sizing up the place while Bonner is looking around. Cabello is kind of cut off by Argello, who's bringing him 2 tankards to drink with him. Cabello tries to dispatch Argello stealthily, misses, punctures one of the tankards, and makes out as if that's fun and games. Drinks from the tankard. Meanwhile, Argello, now a little irritated, hands him the other tankard and turns to go get more, to get a new tankard of ale, while I'm crossing and talking and approaching Herg the barbarian, and his minions are his thugs. Cabello's incident, again, Cabello lets David know that he may again try stealthily to dispatch him if nobody's looking. Thoraya is invited. He's a changeling wearing a hood. They don't quite know what he is, but a group of Ambrians that are drinking invite him and the boy over to join them. And at first he ignores them, but then he joins them and tries to recruit them. Again, one of Dell's characters' motivations is he's trying to recruit others to follow him so they can turn the tide of corruption in the Davakar, right? And bring back the real emperor, right? That's kind of the gist of Thoraya's clan's goals. So he decides to take advantage of this opportunity to sit with him and try to recruit them. Well, meanwhile, some of them leave, some of them agree to stay and listen, but ultimately they won't do his dirty work as he tries to send them over to aid me when the barbarian and I end up in a physical confrontation. Meanwhile, Cabello is trying to wrangle in Argello as Argello pitches the L or onto the boy, and the boy like passes out, which I think we all, I immediately thought, oh my God, he's just killed or poisoned the boy. So the ale might have been poisoned. I don't know, but that was my initial reaction as a player when I was listening to what was happening on that side of the tavern. That Argello might have just tried to poison or kill Cabello with this tankard of ale, and the boy went down as he hit the boy. Thariah then on his feet kept telling these three recruits, go stop, go stop Herg, and well, they won't do it. So he then commands them, "We'll pick up the boy and get the boy out of here. Take the boy to safety out of the bar." So they listen to him and they wrangle the boy up. And they're taking him out. Thariah is following him out as I have situated. I've drawn my weapon and situated a table between me and the big fella to make it hopefully more difficult. And I've got a pike, so I've got a long weapon. So I've situated this table between us while he was being sidetracked by a bar wench that Dell sent over with drinks. And so she kind of kept him occupied. Again, I warned him one more time. This will not be a simple fisticuffs. You will not simply beat me. You may die. You may suffer long-lasting scars or something worse. It would be in your best interest, and there would be more profit in this if you would allow us to negotiate for Malleus's debts, even if it means an obligation. So I was offering up a chance maybe that he might take us up on it and say, yeah, why don't you go do this for me, and then that'll clear the air, right? Or at least, but no, he was having nothing of it. He wanted, so he drew his weapon, and we end up in a fight. Cabello, bang, bang. Cabello stealthily with his stiletto kills one of this barbarian's thugs, and while I'm in a melee with the big boy, and Cabello kills another one of his three thugs, and I've wounded him. He's not managed to wound me, and Cabello, on dropping another one of his thugs, a second thug, it kind of shakes him out of the fact that he's losing, and this has become dangerous as he's lost two men, and he agrees. He asked for me to yield, and I said, I'll yield, but it'll cost you 300. So he demanded that Malleus owe him 300 shillings, which is 30 thalers basically. And when he says I yield, I said, yes, for the price of your life is 300 shillings, meaning let's call it even. So I was trying to basically say, let's call it even. So he would say, fine, take Malleus and go, the debt. And I said, promise me in front of these people the debt's lifted. And he said, I do. And then on the way out, he pitched a bag of coins to us of 300 shillings, or whatever, roughly. I don't know how much it was. It's just a bag of coins. And I'm thinking, hey, bonus. That was the easiest money we ever made. That's a bonus. When all I was really doing was saying, your life for Malleus's life was what I was trying to say. But we ended up making a little coin on the side, which is pretty cool. We meet Thariah outside. They have drug out Cabello has carried out. Was it Thariah? I can't remember now if Thariah or Cabello carried out the unconscious Malleus, and they lay him in the street. I think it was Thariah. Thariah carried out Malleus. His three recruits carried out the boy and lay him in the street. And as we tumble out, Malleus, his form shapeshifts back into a changeling. It's not Malleus at all. So we stand in the street. I've got a bag of coins. We have pulled the boy out, who's now awake, as Thariah poured water on him, woke him up. Unfortunately, as Malleus woke up, he shape-shifted back to a changeling, so it's not Malleus at all. So the session, we draw the curtains on the session. We still haven't found Malleus. However, Arbello ran away, leaving Cabello with unfinished business. Cabello's got a new arch enemy, so to speak, as he's very angry with this guy. And leaves us all wondering, why did Argallo lure us here in front of Herg, and why they lured us here clearly on purpose with the guise of Malleus. and put us in harm's way. They were attempting to ambush us in a public place using Malleus as bait. Why? We don't know. So it's a mystery. It's fantastic. So I want to thank the guys. Another great session. We're having a great time. We're gonna do this every other Tuesday night. We'll rotate GMs play Symbaroum on Tuesday nights, and then every other Wednesday will be Joth, Todd's OSE old school D20 campaigns in the Joth world. So it's gonna be kind of cool. We'll play on a Tuesday night, then we'll play on a Wednesday night, then we'll play on a Tuesday night, then a Wednesday night. So every other week would be great. And we're gonna try to continue to rotate GMs for Symbaroum. And then, of course, we're going to squeeze in other games along the way. Hopefully, at some point, some Blade Runner and some other things. So it's so far, it's working great. Wednesday nights, they all work for me. I can do any night of the week, so that's not a problem. But for Dell, it's a little easier on Tuesday nights because he doesn't have to work early on Thursday morning. So Wednesday nights are harder because Dell's got to get up bright and early and get to work, and so that makes it a little harder for Dell regularly. Every other Wednesday, he can tolerate it for Joth, but we've made a switch to Tuesday nights to make it a little easier every other week at least on Dell for the most part. You know, whatever we got to do to keep the Role Play Cafe plus guy here, Dell, happy. So you always gotta do something for somebody. That's the way it is. Great fun. Todd received his hardback Symbaroum core book. So, of course, we have now said to Todd, you are now required to GM us in one of these sessions. So in a couple of weeks, maybe Todd will be ready to give us a taste of his version of this amazing setting and world that would be, which will be fantastic. Todd mentioned months ago that Joth is kind of loosely based on some of what Symbaroum. I mean, not the like the lore, like the history and things. No, but he always imagined Joth was on the other side of the mountains, right? This kind of this world of Joth is like there's a mountain chain that divides kind of what's happening in this area of the world from. So, which is cool, right? And Joth definitely is unique and has a certain feel. Joth feels probably a little more. Joth feels probably a little more high, not high fantasy. That's not fair. Joth feels a little more. Well, I don't say high fantasy. That's not really accurate. Hard to explain, I guess. I'm trying to think of the difference. Symbaroum feels incredibly fantastical, but gritty, kind of realistic fantasy, I guess, with corruption but there's culture, right? There's politics and there's bureaucracy and there's taxation and there's civilization, but it's so Symbaroum feels that way. Joth does too, but it's so yeah. I mean, I could see why Todd would say Joth was kind of like what would Symbaroum be like on the other side of the mountain, so to speak. Kinda. I think that was the conversation he had kind of hinted at. But I don't think he will regret buying this beautiful, brilliant game system. And hopefully now he'll be in a few weeks if he's ready. He can have one of the GM seats and run us. Will give us 4 GMs in this little game here. So as far as that's kind of the recap. Recap was basically I would argue for the most part it was introducing Tarot back to the group. And it was introducing Tarot to Thoraya and to Cabello. So it was really a pretty simple set. 2 hours, very simple, fun session. We have been introduced to a little bit of a mystery. Why did Argello set us up to be ambushed? Well, who is this changeling and where is Malleus? So this was kind of like the tip of the iceberg of something maybe in relation to Malleus later, I think. We'll see, maybe not, but it felt kind of that way. It was very cool. I definitely like kind of where Tarot's at with this break, and how he's there was a point when he addressed the barbarian, prepared to let the barbarian, beat him up when he was negotiating before he decided that the barbarian wasn't going to negotiate. I was prepared to let him smack me around a little bit because I have a lot of self-loathing and I hate myself. I despise myself because of what's happened to us. And, but starting to get his confidence back as he realizes there's greater fish to fry here. We gotta make sure Malleus is safe, and where better to realize who my true character is, and that is not the bum that I have kind of fallen into. So it was a great session for Taro to kind of get his feet wet and realize that he could still contribute, or at least be on his way to something. So it was fun. It was a great, in that sense, it felt like a kind of a character and a party session, not so much an adventure session, which was kind of really cool, really cool. I don't know if David planned it that way. I don't think David did what he did, but it was a nice place for us all to get Thariah, to know Cabela, to know Bonner, to know me, right, and so that was cool. And introduced this very interesting Argello guy who set us up for an ambush with her, either with her or on behalf of himself or somebody else. So we got a little bit of a mystery there, which is cool. And again, where is Malleus? Right? We'll go home and find he's in bed snoring away as he was doing an odd job of sweeping up horse manure or something, and we were off trying to rescue Malleus when it turns out Malleus was just late from coming home from work, right? So you can imagine Symbaroum, an ogre, a couple of Ambrians, a changeling, used to be Shig, the goblin, now a changeling, and we're all roommates in this rundown old ratty-ass townhome in Thistlehold that is owned and paid for by the Chamberlain, as we are agents for the Chamberlain, so to speak. We just haven't had any gigs yet. And you can just see we're all like roommates, and we're all doing odd jobs because we lost our right to treasure hunt in the Davokar. And of course Taro can't tolerate it, so he's just been a bum and a drunkard and a whoring, and so it's like the party's taken a punch in the nose since Reigel's, and we're all kind of now getting our feet under us. It'll be interesting to see what comes next for the group. What will be cool is to see Malleus, and it would be very cool, to have that moment where the whole party's together, right? If we could, whether Todd GMs it or John GMs it or whatever, would be kind of cool to have a period where it's, or maybe Dell would GM it, because Thariah is the new character. We would have Big Lug, Taro, Malleus, and Cabello all together again, trying to write our name, trying to do something on behalf of the Chamberlain and the Queen, since we are legally not allowed to traverse into the Davokar, right? So it's kind of restricted. We can go in there all we want, but we'd be potentially, we'd be breaking the law, which could get us. But so that would be kind of a cool session to get us all of us ragtag losers back together to try to rectify our name, so to speak. So great fun. Anyway, again, this has been Symbaroum. We're rotating GMs between Dell, David, and myself, and then hopefully Todd will get a chance to GM one here in a few weeks, whatever it takes, and enjoying the heck out of it. Absolutely enjoying it. Who knows what's next for us? I think we'll play Symbaroum on and off for quite some time, but eventually we'll try some other new stuff. Maybe Blade Runner. Who knows? Who knows what else, right? We may not have a whole lot new outside of some one-offs. I still want to run a Savage Worlds game. I don't think I'll get my locals to do something, so I may offer to run a Savage Worlds for the guys here on the on our Discord group, our online group. So I may offer a Savage Worlds. I don't know, what that might look like. I'd have to work on some stuff. I've got a World War II thing that's kind of prepared. I used the original Savage Worlds edition. I don't have Suede yet, second edition. So what I prepared was pretty much based on those rules. It's a World War II kind of behind enemy lines, supernatural, I'm trying to think. So it's somewhat pseudo-historical again, but obviously with some bizarro elements, right? Like zombies or something like that, right? What do they call that? They call that the Weird World 2 or something. but I'm not using that setting, but it's the same kind of concept. It would be Nazis with some supernatural stuff, right, going on. Anyway, so I may offer to do that. I would love to run a Savage Worlds, and it would be great to record it, and that would be great fun. And then, of course, once I break that in, I want to get Task Force Raven, something going on with Task Force Raven. That is Scott Welker's setting book, I guess you would call it, of his modern spec ops cryptid hunters or dealing with supernatural forces, which is very cool. That book, and I should really look at the book and review it. I want to thank Scott and Dell again for providing me a copy of that beautiful hardback for Savage Worlds, Task Force Raven. And what's really cool about Task Force Raven is the jargon. You know, Scott gets in all of that jargon in the book, and so there's a vocabulary there that for us noobs and lay people will take us a while to kind of get down. But he even gives a great example on how you would read coded letters, what coded transmissions would look like. And so there's an authenticity to Task Force Raven that makes you feel grounded in real life, but you're not going to be dealing with the mundane of terrorists or the mundane of human enemies, right? You're going to be dealing with these crazy kind of supernatural investigations, which is very cool. So I would love to eventually run a Task Force Ravens for the online group as well. So it might be fun to have Scott break us in on a Task Force Ravens session with the group, and then we can, and then eventually I'll try to run a Task Force Ravens. That would be very cool. So something non-fantasy would be fun. You know, I love all kinds of IP. The only thing I'm least interested IP-wise is superheroes. I'm just not a superheroes guy. Yeah, even growing up, I mean, I liked the X-Men. You know, I liked Wolverine as a kid. I loved Conan, you know, as a comic book, Conan magazines, Conan comics. But I was never a superheroes guy. You know, Batman would probably be Moon Knight and Batman were my two favorite comic book heroes because they weren't really super heroes. I loved Daredevil, but he had some superhero instincts, you know. Daredevil was great, but I liked him being more human with martial arts abilities, and they used their intellect and maybe gadgets, but, you know, I'm not a big superhero guy, you know. I mean, the idea of these invincible creatures that really can't be harmed or killed, or it completely, narratively, I don't see I mean, we talk about, you know, one of my subscribers talks about ableism, all these games that are, you know, feature ableism for what it's worth, which, you know, it's just the way, the nature of the gaming world. But something like superheroes to me is like, it's hyper competent, right? And therefore, you're either going to be facing other hyper competent enemies. I don't know, it never worked for me. So superheroes are the one genre I'm not a huge fan of. Superpowers don't bother me, but it's the idea of being a superhero not necessarily works for me. But again, probably because I haven't encountered the kind of narrative tells that would make being a superhero character in a because I don't read the novels. I'm not a superhero fan as far as movies. I like human. I like the frailty of the human condition, you know, the in all of its limitations, because we all have them. But I love Wild West. I love Westerns. I love history. I love the Romans. I love pseudo-historic fantasy like Dark Age of Man. I love that stuff. And I love Top Secret. I love Spies, Cold War, World War II, kind of behind enemy lines. I love that stuff. And I love Blade Runner. I appreciate science fiction a lot. However, science fiction is not my forte when it comes to running games. I'm not great with running science fiction games, but I love science fiction, and I like playing in science fiction games. I certainly have run science fiction games. And so it'd be fun to have something also once in a while that's not swords and sorcery, right? Swords and magic, swords and goblins. It'd be fun to try some other genres, right? Cyberpunk's awesome. And of course, I really dig, oh God, what is it called? Steampunk. Oh man, I love steampunk. But the only steampunk game I'm aware of is kind of Leagues of Adventures. Ubiquity is kind of a steampunk era. I mean, it's late 1800s, turn of the century, inventions, etc. But Leagues of Adventure feels very much like it could be steampunk, a brilliant steampunk, right? Love steampunk. So, anyway, I don't know how I got off on this tangent, but it is what it is. I love the hobby, love role playing. Everybody have a great weekend. Bye bye.